Family, friends, you can kind of gather around behind the chairs, alongside the chairs. We just don't want to block the live stream that's going on, if that's possible. Appreciate it.
Tells me what I'm doing.
You know how you want us? Because if you and your husband and your mother, me more than that. Okay. Okay, so your friends. Yeah.
We are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Kenneth Kohn. I'm going to ask that Mr. Kohn's grandchildren and significant others please come by the hearse and please help in escorting him to the graveside. Services will be conducted by Rabbi Wendy Geffen of North Shore Congregation Israel in Glencoe. Also, friendly reminder, if you have a cell phone, please place it in the silent mode or turn it completely off at this time. Why don't you can gather in a little bit closer?
Now you're right in front of me. I think there's a camera right behind you.
If somebody that needs a chair, we got some extra chairs in back. Yeah.
Vicki, Stuart, we're gonna tear your ribbons. Do you know where they are on you? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say a prayer. You're gonna say Amen, and then you're gonna tear the ribbon by putting your hands at the bottom, kind of pulling in opposite directions exactly. And I can help you. Like one up, one down. But hold on one second. So for Taronay Roohafzaii emet, say Amen. For hearts that are torn, we perform this act of kriya, of tearing. So you can do it. Kind of like hold on to both sides and like, yeah, exactly. Hold one down and the other. I can help you. It's not intuitive. Put your hands on my hands.
You can go ahead and sit. We're just going to try to keep that aisle right here for the like. That's just water and blankets, so go ahead and sit down or wrap up, whatever you're comfortable with. Do we have a folder?
Thank you. And just remember, you can wear those ribbons as long as you want. This is a poem written by the poetess Zelda. In Hebrew, L'chol ish yesh shem. It's called Each of Us Has a Name. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our longing and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. In meeting with Ken's family the other day, they shared that he went by many names. Never Kenneth, but Ken, Kenny, Dad, Grampy. I also learned that he had the road handle of Zorro. So many different names by which he was known. But other names come to mind as well: dedicated, funny, loving. So many other names by which we knew him and for which we will grieve this day. But we will also be grateful for having him woven into the fabric of our own lives as we move now to be bearers of his memory. And so is our custom. We turn to voices ancient and new to guide us as we walk through the valley of the shadow of death together. Taronay Roohafzaii lo echsar bino deshe arbitzeni al memenuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'ma'ag le'tzedek l'ma'an shemo. These Hebrew words, you may know, are the first verses of the 23rd Psalm, a source of comfort to so many throughout the generations. You have them written in English on the inside of the pamphlet you received when you came up to this graveside just a few moments ago. As a sign of our presence, let's join together in the English. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. A more recent piece. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing. It is a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. It is a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. In the 90th Psalm, Adonai ma'onata hayita lanu bedor vador, b'terem harim yuladu vat cholel eretz v'tevel, u'me'olam ad olam ata'el. O God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and world from eternity to eternity, you are God. You return us to dust. You decree, return you mortals, for in your sight 1,000 years are as yesterday when it is past, a watch in the night. The span of our life is 70 years and 10, or given strength 80 years. But the best of those years pass by speedily, and we are then left in darkness. So teach us, God, to number our days that we might attain a heart of wisdom. Turn to us, show mercy to us, satisfy us at daybreak with your love, that we might sing for joy all our days. Let your deeds be seen by your servants, your glory by their children. May your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it might long endure. The message of the 90th Psalm is a powerful reminder to all of us for how we might aspire to live our lives, as it asserts that the measure of a life well lived is the attainment of what it calls a heart of wisdom, to come to see our lives as imbued with purpose, and in giving of oneself, sharing oneself and example with those around us, we find that the literal and figurative work of our hands extends beyond the finite bounds of days and years. And this becomes an enduring blessing. How deeply this resonates with the very full life of Ken Kohn. Ken was born to his parents, Dorothy and Herbert, on June 18, 1936, with his sister Jean having been born 5 years earlier. The family was close, also made up of their cherished dog Lady and the family parakeet that often rode on Lady's back. Raised in East Rogers Park, some of Ken's summers were spent at Camp Echo in Michigan. He attended field school through 8th grade, after which he went on to Sullivan High School, from which he graduated, both places serving as the foundation that nourished any number of what would become lifelong friendships for Ken and Ellen, friends who really became family over many years. Undoubtedly, had STEM classes been around then, Ken would have been very into them and would have excelled. After high school, he attended IIT for 2 years, and then entered the workforce as a manufacturing chemist for Kohn Enterprises. When Kohn Enterprises was sold and became Summit Labs, Ken stayed on in various GM capacities for beverage, health, and beauty aid products. When the company relocated, Ken wanted to remain in Chicago, so his professional life pivoted as he and Ellen together started interiors on consignment. After a decade in the retail furniture world, Ken then retired for 5 minutes when Second City Computers asked him to come on as their office manager. He remained there for just under another decade, at which point he began bookkeeping for the bookstall in Winnetka, only stopping in January of 2024. Ken was deeply committed to his work, always. His entrepreneurial spirit enabled him to cultivate an incredibly diverse and meaningful professional journey. Just look at his profile on LinkedIn. It is endless. All of which in which he remained needed and valued essentially his entire life. For Ken, work gave him a sense of purpose, a most profound example of the work of his hands. And this also enabled him to provide for his family, undoubtedly his most cherished priority. So let's travel back to Ken's time at Sullivan, to one day when he was 15 at a picnic with friends at Bald Knob Lake, as it was there that Ken met the true love of his life, Ellen. High school sweethearts, the couple dated until they got married 1 week after Ken's 21st birthday on June 23, 1957. They lived first at the apartment on Greenleaf in Rogers Park, in the same building as some of their closest friends from school. Vicki was born, and then they moved up to Highland Park just before Stuart was born 3.5 years later. As a husband, Ken was warm and affectionate, utterly devoted to Ellen, and doted on her in every way, which she appreciated sometimes. In many ways, Ken was really a progressive husband. When he would come home from work after really full days, he would switch on immediately to his role in the family as husband and father, doing his part and more, cleaning up, taking care of the kids, doing all the driving, as Ellen didn't drive until significantly later. In the later years, when Ellen was sick, Ken took such good care of her as well. Together, Ken and Ellen were married for 56 years and shared a true lifetime of love together for over 6 decades. Early on, Vicki and Stuart realized that Ken was not the typical dad of their time. He was fully immersed and enmeshed in their lives as they were in his. Whether they were going to work with him down on 47th Street near the stockyards, or running errands with him on the weekends, or whether he was helping them with their homework, building a playhouse for them in the backyard, putting them to bed, or participating in their activities with them, Ken was a hands-on, all-in dad who knew his children and his children knew him. A true blessing. As Ellen was more the disciplinarian, if there was a difficult topic to be navigated, Vicki and Stuart always went to Ken first. They knew he could then liaise appropriately with Ellen to catalyze a more desirable result. And Ken modeled for his children what real devotion and commitment to family looked like, especially when it came to honoring one's parents. In their family, Sundays were dedicated to being together with the grandparents. In the summer, Ken would drive downtown 45 minutes to pick up one set of them, drive them back up to Highland Park where everyone would spend the day together, and then he would drive them back downtown after dinner and come home. And in the winter, the family would have lunch in Highland Park with one set of grandparents, and then all of them drive downtown to Chicago to have dinner with the other. Ken always doing the driving. And as an aside, Ken's navigation skills proved one of his defining characteristics, which must be noted. In the 70s, long before the invention of GPS, Ken used a CB radio during his daily commutes. This is where the handle Zorro comes in, chatting with truckers and drivers to determine the best way to get to a destination. And notably, Vicki and Stuart credit their keen sense of direction, no less their highly analytical minds, to their dad. Ken had meaningful relationships with Chuck and Cindy as their father-in-law. He was jovial, interested in their lives. They got along with each other really well. Ken was so deeply grateful to their families for providing him undoubtedly with the greatest blessing in his life, his meriting the title of Grampy to his precious grandchildren and eventually their spouses and significant others whom he treated as his own. Brad and Lexi, Dana and Rio, Jordan and Taronay, and Zach and Becca. As Stuart, Cindy, Jordan, and Zach lived close by, Grampy and Grammy were always integrated into every part of their life. It was just common daily affair. As Vicki, Chuck, Brad, and Dana lived further away, they cherished the more intense experiences of traveling with Grampy and Grammy on special vacations over many years to Disney, Vegas, many cruises. But notably, regardless of location, Grampy cultivated meaningful relationships with each of his grandchildren. So many magical memories endure, like Sunday night dinners at 510 Hill Street, Grampy's signature spoon on the nose trick, green Tic Tacs, the mini fridge at Interiors by Consignment filled with soda and mystery meat, his sweet tooth and love of chocolate chip cookies and brownies, how there was always candy, chocolate in particular, at the front door. All of the special time that Grammy and Grampy would indulge the grandkids in special treats and experiences that their respective parents would never have allowed. Think donuts for dinner. And so much backyard magic. Grampy's giant bubble making, picking raspberries and cherries, hand feeding the squirrels, each of whom Grampy knew. These squirrels that would come to the back door, or sometimes in the house, I guess, as it turns out, and take peanuts from their hands, peanuts that had been held in a special drawer. Ken was present at sporting events, birthday parties. He was not standoffish. He was all in, playful, fun, interested. And he delighted in each of his grandchildren at every stage of their lives, as evidenced by his wall featuring their respective school pictures each and every year. And how incredibly blessed he was to live and see and know the fourth generation of his family, with his precious great-grandchildren, Noah and Izzy, Kaydence and Ezra. Ken loved being Grampy to these four, always goofy and generous, sharing the great expanses of his heart of wisdom with them as well. And they loved him so much for it. Indeed, Ken's heart of wisdom and the work of his hands were an immeasurable blessing in so many ways. They were manifest in the collaborative family tree that Ken created on the computer that he worked on for months and shared with the whole family, long before there were internet programs that made that a simpler process. The work of his hands and his heart of wisdom were manifest in the fact that everyone Ken met loved him, whether it was his kids or grandkids, friends or families, clients he worked with, even in this most recent time at Sunrise. He was simply adored. Ken's essence was one of giving, 100%, to everything and everyone. When Ken met Lana, he relished the opportunity to care for someone again, and how lucky she was to have had him. Ken modeled the most incredible work ethic, dedication, and love of family. Ken did not need anything from anyone. He was fiercely independent, and he wanted to be the one to help, not the one who was helped. Ken was the doer, the fixer, and he found meaning and core identity this way. Ken lived a long and full life, a life he chose to fill with purpose, a life in which he did not idle along, one which he filled up with meaningful experience, abiding loyalty, and profound love. He was generous, measured, kind. He would never say a mean thing about anyone. He was warm and funny, young at heart, and current in every way. And ultimately, the impact of Ken's heart of wisdom and the work of his hands have already left an indelible mark on the lives of those he loved the most. And as such, his legacy will undoubtedly abide only as blessing for generations to come. His memory will always be a blessing. I'll invite you, if you're able, to please rise. El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanafei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim U'Toharim Kazoar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Vigdor HaKohen, Ben Herbert Vidorthi, Shalach Leolamo. Baal Harachamim, Yastirehu Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim, Vitor Bitor HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hunachalato, Yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar. Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace the way of all things. May Ken's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of his love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all his worthy and righteous deeds, that his memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. May Ken's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share can never be severed in sorrow. May he always rest in peace. We say together, Amen. Friends, at this time you can be seated. The cemetery staff is going to come to lower the casket and the vault, and then we'll move toward the conclusion of our service with Kaddish once that's completed. Every generation given the gift of life by those who came before us must eventually confront the loss of life. Mortality is the common condition of humanity, and it, of course, transcends religion, culture, nation. Our human relationships give us warmth, meaning, companionship, and love. And when those relationships are severed by death, we are appropriately plunged into grief. So before we can let go of those we have loved, we pause. We pause in order to take note of a life that's come to its end. We pause to acknowledge our grief. And we pause long enough to allow those who grieve to be surrounded by those who love them. And we pause because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. And we do not want to have to say goodbye. As Jews, we face the common human moment of grieving as others have faced it before us, strengthened by a power that bestows life, comforted by the symbols of our traditions, and by the friends and family who sit with us and reassure us with their presence. In our inevitable moments of loss, may we be granted the peace that comes with the passing of time and the sustaining power of love, which can never die. We'll turn now to the back of those pamphlets where you'll find the words of Mourner's Kaddish. And as you look at those, you can turn to the front and just take a look at Kenny, Dad, Grampy, Zorro, and bring him to you. Because the words of Kaddish, though we say them obviously in our grief, we often assume they're about death. They're actually not at all. They're just about gratitude to God for life. And there is so much for which to be grateful when we think of Ken Kohn. So with the sadness, allow gratitude to come to you. Pick some part of Ken that you are most grateful for this day. Let it be the foundation upon which the words of Kaddish are built. And if you're able, I'll ask you to rise. If you're familiar with the words or comfortable reading them in transliteration or Hebrew, please do join with me. If these are unfamiliar words or you're not comfortable saying them, our tradition teaches that as long as you say Amen at the end, you're credited as having said the whole thing, which lets us know that there is no particular reserve on gratitude when it comes to the way we remember. So wherever it is, we'll all meet up together in one voice with Amen at the end. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah ve'alma divarach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechal beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shemei dekudsha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Zichrono livracha. Ken's memory is a blessing. We say together, amen. Friends, for those who'd like to do so, you're invited now to step forward to participate in the Jewish tradition of burial. In Judaism, our tradition invites those who grieve to participate and to be the ones to actually place earth into the grave as a sign of our undying and unconditional care for Ken, seeing his physical body to its final resting place. If you'd like to participate in this, you're welcome to step forward to either side of the earth. The tradition is to place some earth. We're going to let the family go first. To place some earth into the grave, 1, 2, 3 measures of earth, and then upon concluding, to place the shovel back into the pile of earth so that each person can fulfill this mitzvah entirely of their own accord. Once you participate in this, if you choose to, upon your completing that task, you're welcome to return to your cars. We'll let you know when the ceremony is concluded, should you choose to remain. Okay, guys, if you want to participate, you're going to come first. Yeah, it's like thick. Yeah. Just be careful where you walk.
Friends, I'd like to, it's on your Shiva pamphlet, your folder as well. Shiva will be at the Kohn residence today, immediately following the burial today until 5 o'clock at the Kohn residence, 1611 Eastwood Avenue in Highland Park. And then Shiva will continue Monday, February 10th at the Robinson residence, 1656 Briar Heath Drive in Aurora. And that's from 6:30 until 8:30 with a minion service at 7 p.m. at that residence. Again, that information is on your folder. It's also on our website. Thank you.
I love it. We sat there us and our kids were on this. No, I mean, she painted the picture. It has a wave of birds. on the Zoom. He does.
The register book is out of bed as well. You didn't sign. It's over here.
Traumatized from
Coat requirement.
Certainly appropriate. Had your dad for a long time. And I love that you could talk about this. That's gave a lot of additional color. Right. No, Dan needed Right.
I said that for
That's fantastic. Amazing. Amazing.
Let's use our future though.
Yes. 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 That's a good
But actually, you did. It was pretty bad. But it wasn't supposed to be. But it's not. Right? It's like swat. The next person. Oh, that was it?
It's not unique within your family, which is very it's on Friday and Graveside. I did you. But
Nice to sort of see everybody else.
oh, wow.
I don't know that there's that's what
Hey Rio, nice to meet you. You had a tape
I couldn't see anything, so it didn't matter. I have like very poor vision, and like it was all, I can see kind of generally faces, but that was not it. So don't worry.
I think they did. I mean, to me, like, it was like, you know, okay, I'm just going to go to something.